Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Board Masters with me, Chris Mullins. And first off, I want to apologise to anyone who is expecting the first playthrough of Legendary Marvel tonight. That was my plan, but I pushed it back in order to do this video, and Legendary Marvel will be up next week. So again, apologies for that. And that was my cat Binks just jumping on the recycling boxes, so excuse that as well. He is very playful at the moment. But the reason for this video is, you may have seen, if you follow Boardgameco, Alex uploaded a video yesterday talking about Kickstarter addiction, which if you followed my channel over the last 6 to 8 weeks, you will know is something that I'm quite passionate about. I've done 2 videos talking about Kickstarter addiction, as well as one talking about myself seemingly beating FOMO, which obviously Kickstarter addiction feeds on. So I was very excited because obviously, again, if you've watched my stuff, you will know how often I cite Alex and Boardgameco as one of the major reasons why I got so deeply into this hobby, and certainly he is a major inspiration for why I even have a channel, why the Board Masters even exists. It wouldn't without Alex or Jesse at Quackalate. So I have an incredible amount of respect for Alex, and this is purely a disagreement, I would say, in that I don't agree with what he said in a lot of the video yesterday. It by no means not a character assassination at all. Like I said, I've got huge respect for Alex, and I'm not saying that he's wrong and I'm right, just that we have different opinions on it. Because if you've seen his video, and I'll link it down below if you want to check it out, I went into it. Well, I was very, very excited when a notification came up saying Boardgameco have uploaded a video about, and it was about Kickstarter addiction. It was like, oh, brilliant, there's something I'm passionate about. The guy who inspired me is talking about the same thing. And then I saw the title, that why Kickstarter is the best addiction, and my heart kind of sank a little bit. I mean, I gave it a chance. I actually watched it twice just to make sure I had my thoughts right, and my kitten is going to join me for this by the look of it. Actually watched it twice, as I said, just to make sure I wasn't necessarily misreading things or going in with bias based on the title. And you know, it's a sports cliche, but I think it's really applicable to Alex's video, and that it was a video of 2 halves, in that the first half was a very well-researched, informative look at what addiction is and the stages of addiction and how it can be potentially damaging. And then the second half of the video proceeded into Alex relating that to his own feelings about Kickstarter, something that he clearly isn't addicted to in the strict sense of the word. He is a Kickstarter addict in the way we all sort of, the light-hearted way we use addict or addiction these days, and anything we like doing and we want to do all the time, we like to say we're addicted to it, when obviously that doesn't mean we are a proper addict, like an alcoholic or a drug addict, for example. And that's where it sort of fell down for me, because I mean, I've spoken about how fun the Kickstarter journey is, the dopamine hits and everything, and Alex is very outspoken that he loves that aspect as well, and that's fair enough, most people do. And this isn't saying that's wrong either, it's just using that to justify why it's the best addiction, and why Alex said that he was happy to have the addiction and that he loves the journey, and completely undermined everything he said earlier in the video about addiction and how damaging it can be, because you've got someone who is now incredibly influential in this community, and rightly so, saying Kickstarter addiction is really bad, it can be really damaging, but I love it and it's the best addiction you can have. And if a genuine Kickstarter addict is watching that, someone who respects Alex, it's almost like they've been given a free pass now. It's like, because I mean, what Alex mentioned in the video with the monetary damaging bit, it can be that first moment where you look at a £500 pledge, and instead of recoiling in horror and saying never in a million years, you actually justify it to yourself and buy it. And thanks to Alex, that's what I did with Massive Darkness 2. I mean, I even showed my wife his should you back it video on Massive Darkness 2, and that's what convinced her to allow me to do it. So I'm familiar with that, but that isn't what the addiction is, and we've got to be very, very careful, particularly someone in Alex's position who is very, very influential, has a very long reach, and people have an awful lot of respect for what he says. And if you're going to say Kickstarter is the best addiction, I love it and I'm happy to have this addiction, it's better than other things, then that is pretty careless, if I'm honest. I mean, it kind of, although it's a completely different level, and I'm not comparing Alex to Donald Trump in any way, but it is kind of the same thing as when Donald Trump said you could cure COVID by drinking bleach, and 99% of us laughed at him for being such a moron and saying something so ridiculous, and then hospital admissions for people drinking bleach spiked in the immediate aftermath. So it only needs to be a tiny fraction of people, and if there are people out there with Kickstarter addiction, something which Alex seemingly recognizes as legitimate based on his video and the fact that he covered it at all, if there is, that is not, it's not the best of anything. It is a serious problem because it's not fun for them anymore. They're not getting the dopamine hits because it's fun and they're enjoying the journey and, oh, I got another parcel, let's play a game, and oh, another stretch goal, another unlock, a daily reveal. They're not having that. They are buying because they need it. They cannot cope without it, not because they're enjoying it, and they are primarily financially hurting themselves, but that can also feed into their relationships and also their daily duties as well, and they are hurting themselves in many ways to get a hit in the same way that alcoholics or drug dealers do, and it's just as damaging, it's just as problematic. And if you're gonna undermine the seriousness of it, then you're gonna do more harm than good, unfortunately. And these are points I've commented on Alex's video as well, so it's not like I'm just making my point a retort in this video where it's not going to have much reach and I don't expect him to see it, and I'm almost talking about it behind his back in a way. It is something I raised on there, so he is aware that I feel this way, and as I said at the beginning, I have a tremendous amount of respect for him, and this is probably the first time in the year that I've religiously followed his content and been in the hobby that I've really worried that he's just been a bit careless with his language, and I have no belief that his intention at all was to undermine the seriousness or legitimize it. Sorry, Binks is very active. At all. I don't believe that was his intention in any way. I think as someone who maybe playfully describes himself as a Kickstarter addict, maybe got confused with what a genuine addict is, and as he said in the video, he's not an expert in any way. It's just things he's read up on social media addiction, and as someone who's gone through alcohol addiction in my teenage years and has dabbled a bit with Kickstarter addiction, in that there was a point where I was backing far too much and it was causing harm, and thankfully, having been able to break those cycles in the past, I was able to break it again, but having come through that, I recognise what a serious issue it is, and for one, I give him massive credit for even talking about it, because having the conversation is a very, very important step, and something that I hope we're able to do as a community much more, because I think first off, there needs to be a conversation about, is Kickstarter addiction an actual thing? Is it legitimate? And if so, where do we go from there? Do we have to change practices? For example, the constant dopamine hits, the stretch goals, the unlocks, the daily reveals. Do we need to put restrictions in place for those? We know that the vast majority of stretch goals are not stretch goals. They're pre-planned and they're deliberately used to feed FOMO and basically encourage addiction. And maybe it needs to be more like what Steamforged Games did with Monster Hunter World Campaign, where they have, this is our pledge. We have a few additions coming throughout the campaign. We have a few add-ons. And that's it. There's no more campaigns like a Come On campaign where you're unlocking a new figure every time they earn £10,000, when with a Zombicide campaign, come on, no, they're going to reach in the millions, and yet you're getting a stretch goal at 25,000, at 30,000, at 35,000, and it's just adding more and more figure and just feeding that and feeding that and feeding that. And maybe that is the sort of destructive marketing that we need to eliminate, and maybe not, but it's a conversation that I think needs to be had. And so I want to thank Alex for at least bringing it up to far more people than my channels are ever going to reach. And that's kind of everything I wanted to say, really. Again, I just wanted to respond to the video Alex put out in as respectful way as possible, because like I said, he is an inspiration of mine. And I just think on this one occasion, the language he used was a bit careless and unfortunate. And I just felt like putting my thoughts and feelings on tape and out there for you. And Binks is here to make one final appearance before we go. So thank you very much for watching. Look after yourself, stay safe, and have a good one. Thank you. Bye-bye now.